Hi guys, it's JT here and welcome to the JT Leadership Podcast, brought to you by PMG, a podcast where I take everyday leadership challenges, simplify them and provide you with the tools all to create a positive outcome within your lives. Leadership is one of the most sought after abilities in the world today, not just in the business world, but also in your life, in your personal life. It's often confused that leaders and leadership is only ever associated with people running massive organizations like CEOs. Leadership is at every level. It needs to be at every level within a business, but also at every level in your life. You need to be the leader of your life, which brings me on to why I'm doing this podcast. I'm doing this podcast and these series and these episodes because I want to provide you with the value and the tools so that you can make an impact in your life, so that you can change your life and then go on to make an impact in other people's lives, whether that be in your personal life or in the business environment. And in my previous episodes, I discussed the core areas of a leader, the right behaviors, why behaviors are so important. So if you haven't listened to those episodes, I recommend you go back and to listen to the first few episodes. But for now, without further ado, let's get into episode 4. The power of sovereignty. And in this episode, I'm going to be answering 3 questions. What do I mean by sovereignty? Why is it important? And how to implement this into your life today. Okay, so let's get into question 1. What do I mean by it? What do I mean by sovereignty? And am I talking about standing at the top of a mountain, then sitting down, folding your legs, and humming? No, that's not what I mean by sovereignty. What I mean by sovereignty is the control of your emotion. So we're humans. We have emotions, and in the workplace, in our lives, we've been conditioned to think and believe, it's now in our belief systems, that we should not show emotion, that we should not be vulnerable, we should not care about other people, that we should always put number 1 first. That is wrong. That is the wrong way to look at it. This only creates internal conflict. So for example, I'll tell you a little story about myself. I grew up and I was a kid like any other kid, happy, having fun, playing around. But then when I got into my teen years, I went through a series of events which I felt just completely shut off my emotions. This was with my parents, with my brother, with school, and I felt like I just became emotionless. This went on for a number of years, and then I met my now wife, so my girlfriend at the time, and I started to get a little bit in touch with my emotions. I connected with her, we had great rapport, we was in love, and eventually spent many years together, went on to get recently married, which I'm over the moon about, but I still felt as if I was emotionless. Yes, I could show an emotional side, but I never really felt deep down that I could show emotions. Until the last few years, when I started to really invest in myself. And most recently, this year, I went to a seminar event. And I thought to myself, well, seminars aren't for me. It's just listening to another guy. He's just going to talk, tell me some nonsense that I don't need to know. But my brother convinced me to go. He really convinced me to go. And that, for me, I felt was a turning point. I went through that and actually learned the tools to be able to connect with who I am as a person. Learnt my values. And I felt from that point on, it wasn't that I was emotionless. I realised myself that actually I was consciously, at the beginning, closing off my emotions to not feel the bad and the negative things I felt earlier in my life. So those bad situations that were put in, I shut myself off from them. And I made that decision consciously. So then over the years, subconsciously, it started to happen. It was automatic. But then I made a switch. I decided to consciously open myself up to emotions and to feel others and be empathetic and feel myself. From that point on, I found that this was a bit of a problem now. I went from being emotionless to having emotions. So I was on the other spectrum of things, experiencing a lot of emotions. And this posed a problem. Now I need to learn how to manage my emotions. And as humans, we are emotional creatures. Our emotions are not bad, but they do not define who we are as a person. Our emotions are not our identity. However, our brains are wired to show emotion. So we have a brain which is a couple of million years old, and that brain is designed to protect us. So whilst I was researching into this area, I come across something called the chimp paradox, written by Steve Peters. And this explains that there is a part of our brain, which he calls the chimp, which is designed over hundreds of thousands of years. It's been designed to protect us. It will, if we walk into a situation and it detects fear, we will then go into what most people know as fight, flight, or freeze. And that's the mode that part of our brain is designed to go into. And this part of our brain worked for us when we were hunters. But now things have moved on. We are different people. We face different challenges. What Steve Peters explains is that there is also a different part of our brain, which he calls the computer. This is what can control, and this is what dictates what we do and dictates our behaviors. The chimp part is the emotional part of our brain. So if someone damages our ego by saying we weren't great at something, the chimp wants to automatically react. It might be through anger, frustration, physical attacks. But the computer part of our brain is the part that can help us control and manage these emotions. As leaders, we need to be aware of how we let our emotions can take control of our decisions and communications. So for example, if you're leading a team and something was going wrong, you've got a team of 10 or 15 people sat around a table, even a team of 2. If something went wrong and you let frustration, anger, sadness control your decision making, this can cloud your judgment. This will then rub off onto your team, and then you will all be behaving in the same way. Now imagine if you got really angry because someone made a mistake. They will feel that you're blaming them. They will then go and replicate that to the person down the line. This happens in business and in life every single day. We let our emotions affect how we behave, and that impacts other people in a negative way. We must, however, and this is a must, take a note of this, we must be self-aware that the way others behave can influence our behavior. But this is where sovereignty comes into play. If we can control and manage our emotions, and I'm not saying that we just shut all those off, because we cannot control external influences, but what we can do is control how we behave following feeling a certain emotion, such as anger. We can turn that anger, frustration, sadness into a positive. Then we can decide to behave in a more positive way and have a positive impact. And that's why the power of sovereignty is so important. We can go on to make a difference, a positive difference, if we can manage the way out we feel and our emotions and use sovereignty and the tools as a catalyst to turn negative emotions into a positive emotion. So for example, I work in an industry where there is a huge blame culture. People will blame everyone and anyone but themselves when things go wrong. And that it's so easy to be affected by those other people. So I ask myself this question when I come across those situations. You might want to write this down, or if you're listening to a podcast and someone's in the car, tell them to save this clip. This is a question, and it's a powerful question that I ask myself a lot. If I can afford the right to another person to influence my mood, surely I can afford myself that same right. I'm going to say that again, and I want you to say it back to yourself. If I can afford the right to another person to influence my mood, surely I can afford myself that same right. I find that's just such a powerful question. But why? Why would I bother asking myself that? Well, it's been proven that allowing negative energies and negative emotions to control your life can have serious impacts and consequences on you as a person. Lack of sleep, breakdown in relationships, negative thoughts, mental health issues, physical health issues. That's just you. But then the people around you, your energy and the negative energy rubs off onto them. They can feel that. So as a leader, if you're in an office and the energy that you're giving off because you're in such a bad mood is a really negative one, the team's going to feel the same way. And consistency in that breeds a culture of that. A culture of negative and ill thoughts, blame cultures. This is why sovereignty and managing your emotions is so powerful. So what do you do about it? How do you go about controlling your emotions? Well, I'm going to tell you 2 tools. And these are 2 tools that have made a huge difference in my life. And I've been researching other people, other great leaders, and they do very similar things. So tool number 1, and this is self-awareness of stress triggers. So stress is something that's all around us. It happens in everyday situations. But often we just become stressed and then let that dictate our emotions and then move on. But if we become aware of our stress triggers, we can start to do something about it. The position that I feel like I'm in now is that I have mastered my emotions. But it always wasn't like that. So the tool I use to get to that point, which is the first tool, which is the self-awareness of triggers, is that whenever I was in a stressful situation, I would write down what the stressful thing was. So if, for example, if I was in a meeting and is someone calling me out, is someone blaming my team, if I was driving and someone cut me up, if I was running late because the train was running late, these are things that were causing me stress essentially, or making me angry. So it's like, well, okay, I made a list and it was a long list. I remember it was 20 or 30 items. I could then do something about it. So this is what's so important about it. If you identify what the problems are, you can then go on to do something about it. So that's the first step. And I implore you to do this. Understand when you're in the next situation, whether it's your relationships, whether you come home and your partner does something or says something and it's making you angry, making you frustrated, making you sad, write it down. Keep it personal. You don't have to share it with anybody. Just write it down, keep it in a book, keep it on your notes on your phone, and then you can go on to the next step. You can then start to think, okay, how can you do this? How can you overcome that stress trigger? And a tool I use, and this is the second tool, is focusing on the positive. So I try to reframe a situation to focus on the positives. So I'll tell you a little story about something that happened to me recently. This was in the last couple of weeks. I work on a project where often decisions are made above my pay grade. But they're things that I don't agree with them. They don't align with who I am as a person or the values and how I like to lead people. These decisions can have a negative impact on me and my team. And I understood that, okay, this is causing me stress. So I listed them down. I said, okay, what are the top one and two things that are causing me stress about the situation? And then I looked at the consequence. I said, okay, so what is the consequence of that stress? And then I said, okay, so now I understand what the consequences are. Why is it causing me stress? What does that actually mean? What are my behaviors following that? And then I realized something as I was doing this, and I said, well, actually, there's a deeper meaning as to why I believe it causes me stress. Because it goes against who I am as a person. It goes against my values. And then I went back to my values. Okay, so what are my values? So this in particular situation was testing my ability to lead. But then I discovered that actually I started to go out of my way for my team, and they didn't even realize it, and I don't expect them to. I went out of my way for my team for a reason. So I started to dig a little deeper and I asked myself why again. And then I realized it's because I care. It's because I care about my team. And then the emotion that was going through me was happiness. So here is the tool. Take a negative situation and reframe it by asking yourself questions about how that makes you feel, why you're feeling like that, the consequences. Explore your emotions and then reframe it to look at the positive. So I took a situation where I was very frustrated and angry and actually made myself happy. And this process took me all of 2 minutes. And that's something you can do right now. And that can make a huge impact in your life if you decide to do it right now. Wow, okay, so we've covered a lot there. So as I do with every episode, I just want to do a quick recap, go through what we discussed and answer the questions. So question 1, what do I mean by sovereignty? And I answered this. Sovereignty, and most importantly, the power of sovereignty allows us to control our emotions and triggers. This allows us to become better leaders, better decision makers, better people, become the best version of ourselves, improving a little bit every single day. And again, why is it important? So question 2, this allows us to remain focused and achieve our outcomes, improve ourselves, grow every single day a little bit by a little bit, but also allows us to understand who we are as people and how we can become a better version of ourselves. And then how do you implement this into your life today? So I'll discuss, there's 2 tools. Tool number 1, self-awareness, logging and recording what is causing you stress, what is making you angry, what creates those emotions. And then tool number 2, ask yourself questions, explore your own emotions and reframe a bad situation and turn it into a positive situation. This will, again, allow you to better understand yourself and become a better version of yourself every single day. Wow, okay, so again, so much there, so much to take away. I hope you've taken some notes. If not, save this podcast in your playlist, re-listen to it again later on. But I feel absolutely privileged that you have taken your time to listen to episode 4 of the JT Leadership Podcast, The Power of Sovereignty. And I hope that the tools and value that I'm providing you will make an impact in your life so that you can really change something and then go make an impact in someone else's life. And if you're loving the value, hit the follow button, hit the subscribe button, please leave a comment below, give it a 5-star rating, and I look forward to seeing you and speaking to you in episode 5, The Power of Language and Listening. Thank you very much for listening. This is JT signing out.